Seoul, what a goldmine of a city for photography. It was my second time here, but when I first came I wasn't really into photography yet, so what I remember the most was how much I liked the Korean food, but I kind of forgot what the city actually looked like aesthetically speaking. And this time again, it was not a dedicated photography trip, it was a first test traveling together as a family with our little daughter, and we didn't make it easy by traveling overseas, but it turned out being a big success. Of course, I brought my camera and some equipment to shoot a few photos and hopefully make a video while still enjoying family time. I kept things simple. I paired my Sony a7CII with the Sigma 28-70, so I could have fun with different focal lengths and adapt to almost any situation. Not the sexiest setup, but it does the job extremely well in a fairly compact package. We arrived in the afternoon, and that first day was really wet. We actually got lucky with the temperature. It was probably the coolest week of the summer, but that came with some rain and some weird climate, so the kind of light I usually chase wasn't really there for most of the trip. But to my surprise, Seoul and South Korea in general, I guess, is so full of character, vibrant colors and atmosphere that even without good light, there was plenty to photograph. We ended up having dinner in Myeongdong that night, and that's where we spent our first evening. Not a very intense photo session, but I got some shots I'm happy with. I like this handheld long exposure of a guy totally absorbed in his phone, centered in a frame with people moving around him. I also like this one of a Ginzen shop tenant coming back inside. You don't see his face, not even his head, which makes it feel a bit more mysterious. We stayed in a super convenient location, Chungmero, which gave us really easy access to cool areas like Eoljiro, Dongdaemun and many more. One of the biggest factors in how much I like a city is how walkable it is, and Seoul is easily one of the most walkable cities I ever stayed in. It makes photography so much more fun, and it naturally blends with just visiting the city with friends or family. On that second day the rain wasn't as bad as forecasted, so we just walk around aimlessly, no specific goals. What surprised me the most was the sharp contrast between some ultra-modern, almost futuristic areas and others that felt stuck like 40 or 50 years in the past, both in terms of infrastructure and visual style. We walked all the way to the Gyeongbokgung Palace, only to find out that it was closed, guilty of being spoiled tourist, not even checking opening hours. But that didn't stop us. We kept on going to the Bukchong Hanok village. It was a bit crowded, of course, but still very enjoyable to walk around. We ended up the day slowly walking back to the hotel and had dinner in the area nearby. And here comes day 3. I decided to wake up early and go on a traditional early morning photo walk. As expected, it was overcast, but that didn't stop me from getting out of the bed before everyone else to take some time for myself with my camera. That first shot really shows what I mentioned earlier about the contrast in this city. 1 minute you're in a super clean, modern looking corner, and the next you turn and find yourself in a street like this. It's textured and layered, messy but not in an unpleasant way, and even without dramatic light, the scene holds together. Your eye can bounce between elements, the car, the store signs, the trucks, the vanishing city in the background. Next I saw this bright yellow sign with some bold black characters, and I went for a slow shutter to create a painterly, almost abstract look. I'm not fully convinced about the result, but I've been experimenting a lot with slow shutter shots lately. Better ones will come soon, and you'll understand later in the video why I've been kind of obsessed with them recently. Maybe there's something to focus on here. It's like the little storefront with green, kind of yellow, and those transporting stuff. In this one, the yellow sign in the middle acts like an anchor with a pale green forklift on one side and a red scooter on the other. They are facing each other like they are frozen in a conversation. Everything feels a bit worn out, but still full of life. I passed by a little shop where a man was getting some things ready for the day. The faded orange sign, the stacked containers, the yellow striped pole, it all felt really lived in. There was so much texture, and that man in the center had just enough action. And now I really wonder what he was doing. I probably should have stepped closer, maybe even start a conversation, but that's not really my style. This next one feels like a better attempt at this slow shutter speed thing. The red-orange cone against the stacked blue chairs makes for a solid color combo, and the motion blur feels smoother. There's a softness I like, it's abstract, but it's still rooted in reality. You can still recognize the characters, I mean, if only I could read them. Here I tried to use this colorful awning to add something to the shot, but I don't think it really works. Maybe a longer focal length would have helped. I mean, it's not terrible, but it doesn't add much either. This one is from a Vietnamese restaurant, but this is exactly what I remember about Seoul. Some bold colors, textures, patterns everywhere. Even something as simple as a folded umbrella becomes a photo. The city just offers so many strong visuals to play with, and it really wakes up the creative part of your brain. If you could get someone to walk in the street with the white backdrop, I mean, it would pop very nice with focusing on this texture in the foreground could look good, but it's not like it's very busy in the street at the moment. Maybe someone's coming. So that next photo is a good example showing that having a zoom lens really helped. I was able to punch in and get this compressed perspective. And Seoul has so many of these narrow alleyways like that, and being able to isolate just a slice of it at 70mm made a huge difference. A wide lens just wouldn't have worked the same way, I think. There's something I always find interesting about people going into a shop or a building. It always brings more questions than answers, which I find more engaging. And when the place they're entering in is a tiny little shop like this, I just have to take a photo. I try to bring some balance and structure by really centering my composition to organize the visual mess that was all over the frame. As I kept walking through this messy little neighborhood near our hotel, I came across this scene. I think it works because there's no sky, you have no reference point, so the construction behind feels like it could rise up forever. I also like the symmetry between the two forklifts and the worker walking right behind them. Another pretty nice street scene, a woman in red prepping some vegetables sitting on a matching red stool, surrounded by all sorts of crates, signs and boxes. Visually it's a lot, but it all felt naturally placed and I didn't need to move too much. The frame was just here for me to take. I kept playing with motion blur and this one became one of my favorites. The colored circles on the sign already looked graphic, but the slight movement gave them more energy. I also like the contrast between the textures. You have some glossy glass on one side and a rough red wall on the other, and everything gently blending together with the slow shutter speed. So the main reason we came to Seoul in the first place was to check out the exhibitions of Jonathan Bertin and Alex Quito at Ground Seesaw, two incredibly talented and dedicated photographers with very different styles. To be honest, I didn't know Alex Quito before, but I had been following Jonathan Bertin's work for a while. He's definitely someone influencing me lately, especially with these slow shutter experiments. He's been working on a series inspired by Impressionist painters, and the way he's pulling that off is really impressive. But that's just one part of his work, because he's also made amazing photo projects before and after that. But seeing it in a gallery setting was really something else, because what I didn't expect was how well the Ground Seesaw presented both exhibitions. I thought the tickets were a bit pricey at first, but once inside, it all made sense. They created a full-on visual experience that gave both Jonathan and Alex's works a lot of space to shine. So if you're in Seoul while the exhibitions are still running, it's definitely worth a visit. So right after stepping out of the gallery, I was still buzzing with inspiration, and then I saw this scene. There was this kind of stained glass backdrop full of colors, overlapping fish and geometric patterns. I waited for someone to pass to create a silhouette, and this woman walked by with perfect timing. Great posture and expression, even if you can't see much of it. It's probably my favorite shot of the trip. And then later that day we went to the Gwangjang market for dinner and soaked in the energy of that vibrant place. On our last full day of this trip, we first planned to go somewhere indoors because the forecast showed some heavy rain, but it ended up being just a strong, short shower early in the morning. So we walked all day through Dongdaemun Design Plaza and the nearby market. This contrast between modernity and authenticity was at its peak there. The market was incredibly vibrant, and what surprised me, both my wife and me during this whole trip, was how kind and curious people were toward our baby. We couldn't really communicate with words, but smiles, expressions and cheerful sounds said it all. They were genuinely so happy to see her, and it put a smile on our faces every time. Our babies too, of course. So what was supposed to be a quick trip to check out a photo exhibition and eating some good food ended up being a bit of a revelation for me, photographically speaking. I'm already looking forward to coming back, and maybe next time it will be just dedicated to photography. I feel like I've barely just scratched the surface, but yes, this time around I remember more than just how good the food is. I also remember the visual explosion this city offers. So Seoul, see you soon, and thanks for watching. Until next time, keep shooting.